Hi, this is the Headset Historian. Today I want to talk about this headset, the Quest Pro. This is Meta's high-end headset that was released last year, 2022, around October. So this headset is about almost a year out now, but I guess a couple of months off a year, but it's close enough. This headset is a very mixed bag. A lot of people have tried it. A lot of people have very different opinions on it. It was originally intended by Meta to be a productivity headset, and I was actually one of the very rare people, I believe at the moment at least, one of the very rare people that genuinely wanted the headset for this purpose. So, for this purpose, that sounds a bit better. Anyway, this headset, when it was announced, there was no mention of gaming whatsoever. The focus was entirely on productivity. And like I mentioned, I'm someone that's actually quite interested in that. Primarily, monitor replacement is my main goal right now. That's my main draw towards a headset like this. So something like the recently announced visor from Immersed, that's something that I'm quite interested in. Personally, I find the Apple Vision Pro very appealing, but much too expensive. Also, I don't actually want, at least not right now, I don't want all my computing to be done on the headset. For various reasons. The main reason though is that I don't want to wear a headset all the time. I want to have my laptop with a headset that connects to it so that I can have monitor replacement and have spatial computing, but I want to still have the option to just be using my laptop or to plug my laptop into a dock. I think down the road having a spatial computing device, a headset that's all inclusive, that does everything, will make a lot of sense and will probably be a great boon. But form factor isn't there yet, so it's not something that, as an actual working device, I think the laptop is still a great form factor. It's something you can put in your backpack, you can take out, quickly do stuff, put away, put it on a headset. At least with what we have right now, headsets like this, there's too much involved. If it's spatial computing, you're going to have to take out like a Bluetooth keyboard or something like that to actually do anything reasonable. So that still is too cumbersome. There's times where you just quickly need to pull out your laptop to address something and then put it back in. But I am very interested in monitor replacement. So I work as a coder for a living. So having something, having multiple monitors is a setup that I pretty much is borderline necessity to get my job done. If I'm working with just one monitor, my productivity does plummet quite a bit, particularly if it's a laptop monitor. If it's one large ultra wide monitor or something like that, that's totally fine, or a 4K monitor that's large enough where I can split apps across 4 panels, 4 corners, then that works pretty well. But realistically, with a laptop form factor, one monitor is not enough. So I carry around a USB-C monitor that I plug into my laptop, and that's most of the time I'm working, from home or from the office. But I do travel a fair bit, or I do end up in situations where I'm working from somewhere where I don't have my usual setup, and that's what I was hoping that this headset would fill. I was hoping that this headset would be a monitor replacement, and the idea of collaborating in VR, the idea of perhaps some spatial computing, certain apps that maybe might suit well to VR or mixed reality rather. I was interested in trying that out and seeing what was early days, but ultimately this headset did not achieve that purpose. I did try using this headset for productivity. No, it just didn't work. It didn't happen. As a monitor replacement device, personally, I didn't find it enough of a value add or enough of a benefit. I really wanted to use it, but I find it just cumbersome. There's often, latency. There was often issues with trying to get things set up, and my test for this essentially was, I'll get it set up as well as I can. I'll get it all tuned in. I'll get it working, like it would be optimal, I suppose, for what I can do. And then if I find myself constantly wanting to reach for my laptop and that second USB-C monitor, then that would kind of give me my answer. And that ultimately was the answer that I came to, was that I much preferred my typical workflow of laptop, USB-C side monitor. So yeah, this failed as a monitor replacement. I think it can work as a monitor replacement for some people. The clarity is just about there, but it depends what you're doing also. I would say if you're doing heavy coding with a lot of code, if that makes sense, like where you want to have a large deal of information on the screen at one time, it does struggle for that a bit. But I think that'll come down to personal preference, so that's fair enough. There's some people even on Quest 2 that are using that for monitor replacement daily. Some people apparently using the Immersed app will be working 40 hours a week or more in Immersed using a Quest 2. More power to those people. I wish I could be one of them, but I'm not, unfortunately. I think I will be at some stage relatively soon. Something like the Immersed Visor, if that really is as high resolution as they say and as small and as comfortable as they say, and if the friction to getting things to work and to getting in is low enough, then I think it'll be great. I'm expecting the price for that one to probably be around $2,000 US. I know people might find that a bit shocking, but if it is using these extremely high resolution OLED panels, micro OLED panels, then I would struggle to see how they could get the price down drastically. But I could be completely wrong. So hopefully, maybe it's like in the 1 to 1.5k range. That would be, I think, acceptable. So carrying on, this headset was intended to be a productivity headset, and that was the entire focus. Meta's presentation on this, their announcement of this, the release of this, never mentioned gaming. It was never a focus. It was always just productivity. I think this headset could actually be a good spatial computing device right now, but the software isn't there. That's the primary thing holding it back. I don't think it could be a great spatial computing device. I think it could be a good spatial computing device where the focus wasn't mixed reality, where the focus of the color pass-through was purely just to give you some spatial awareness in the real world, just to facilitate comfort and to facilitate, not knocking things over or seeing where your mouse keyboard is, things like that. In terms of being an MR device, the story that people have been saying is that, and this seems to be true, is that there was meant to be a depth sensor in this headset. It was pulled out last minute, and as a result that severely hampered the mixed reality capabilities of this headset. That's quite a tragedy, but we will be seeing in the Quest 3 that coming into play. So ironically, Quest 3 might actually be, or almost certainly will be, a better productivity device than this. The features like eye tracking, face tracking, local dimming, these features that added quite a bit of an expense to the headset are not really required for productivity, at least not at this moment. Now, I can understand the face tracking and eye tracking. I think their goal there was to have, telecommunication, or what do you call it, telepresence. That makes sense, but again, software, it's just not there. The fidelity of the avatars is not sufficient to justify the eye tracking and face tracking, in my opinion. Now, the eye tracking and face tracking is a nice bonus to have, and it does increase immersion, but for that cost that it's going to raise on the headset, and for the obvious software hours put into it to develop these aspects. Now, of course, the eye tracking and face tracking will come back again, and it's not like this time was wasted. But I think this headset could have had the eye tracking, face tracking removed, and that would have actually probably made it quite a bit cheaper and probably quite a bit more viable as a result. Moving on, this headset ended up failing as a productivity device, and that was my main purpose for getting this headset. It was the main reason I wanted to use this headset. So why do I still have it? What happened? Well, this headset failed at productivity, but it's actually a brilliant PCVR headset. I'm sure it's a good standalone headset too. I rarely play standalone games, not in any elitist way. It's just I have a powerful PC there, and wireless streaming has become so good and so fluid. I feel that it's actually, the friction's quite low these days to jump into a wireless PC session on a Quest, or Quest 2 or Quest Pro or a Pico 4. I find myself in the past, when Airlink and Virtual Desktop were still quite finicky and not as reliable, I would often jump into standalone for a quick session of something but now I pretty much exclusively play PCVR with this headset. I don't ever really feel like, oh, it's gonna be a few minutes of fiddling about trying to get this to work well or something, so that's great. There's a couple of things. You might have noticed that this isn't a stock headset. So what is different here is this is actually the Globular Cluster Comfort Kit, which is an incredible name for a company or product. Globular Cluster. Really, really, really good company, actually, really good product. I've talked to some of the people there and I really like them. I was actually doing a side project one time where I needed some 3D files for this part, and I reached out to them and asked, could you send me the CAD files, which I thought was quite cheeky and I didn't think they would actually do, and they did. Fair play to them. So obviously those files are not released publicly and I wouldn't be doing so, but it was just for something I was doing myself. But yeah, the out of the box comfort of this headset, I would say, is okay. Like, it feels nice initially for, you know, about 20 or 30 minutes. You've probably heard this before. It feels nice initially, and then it gets quite headache inducing and not so nice. So this comfort kit, you know, this padded strap, the larger front pad, that really adds a lot to it. Now this back part, actually, this is the stock one, so I just left that stock, but the one that comes with the Globular Cluster is really good too. Once you've done this mod, the comfort is very good. It's not amazing. It's not the most comfortable headset I've worn, but it is very good. Well, it's not the most comfortable headset in terms of weight and how it feels on the head, but it is the most comfortable headset I've worn in terms of heat. And there's something I want to get into that I find is quite unique about this headset, and something that might be a bit of a controversial take, so I'll move this a little bit. So there's two options, or three options rather, when you use this headset. First option is the default, where there's just no facial interface. Or sorry, yeah, there's no light blockers. Just you put this on your head and you can see all the way around. You know, the world around you is completely visible. So a lot of people, for immersion, that would be a deal breaker. And a lot of people really don't like that. So in the box came these. These are light blockers that came with the headset. These are partial light blockers, so they only go on the sides of the headset. So this is, you know, you can see here, this is the extent of which they block out the light. So all underneath is still going to be completely visible. Then another option, which you can get the official one, or this, personally I just bought like an AliExpress version of it for much cheaper, because ultimately it's a bit of plastic and silicone. There's no need for it to be so expensive. This is the full light blocker, and it's magnetic. You pop that on and it blocks quite well, I would say. You know, it blocks everything you would expect to be blocked, yada yada. However, I never use them. I originally got them thinking, oh, I would use them all the time, or that, or at least this one I thought, yeah, I'd use this all the time. My partner, for example, when she uses this headset, she always wants the light blocker, but for me, I actually find this to be probably the most compelling aspect of the Quest Pro, is having this floating off your face design with no light blocker. I struggle to go back to any other headset that doesn't have this. It really is a format that I absolutely love, and I think any headset I'll be getting in the future, I'll be modding it to have a similar way of sitting on my head. There's a few reasons. The main one though is heat. I really struggle in headsets with heat building up. Even headsets that have active ventilation like the Pico 4, the Aero, I find it just gets very clammy, very kind of it's just, I feel like if my face isn't breathing, it becomes very frustrating. So this is great. It means I can play this headset year round, in the summer, anytime. There's no issues at all. I can't express how much I love that. It's just, I did not expect to like this so much. I thought I would hate this open approach, and I ended up loving it. Another aspect of this open approach that most people would find terrible is immersion, because obviously you can see the world around you. That's going to be quite jarring. However, I found that the room that I play VR in only has one small window and it has blinds over it at all times, so the lighting in that room is very, very even. There's no large spots of light or anything like that. If the lighting in the room is even, I don't notice the outside world at all. Once I start playing a game, I get completely immersed. Even if it's a horror game or something, I get completely immersed. Now, there is one nice bonus feature. If it's a horror game, I can actively make myself look around outside the headset to kind of ground myself a bit again. But that might be a negative for some people if you really want the horror game to be intense. But if I'm playing Phasmophobia with friends, sometimes I'm like, all right, this is great. I can look about and kind of grind myself again, because they're all playing Pancake and I'm playing in VR and I'm about to quit the game. So it's very nice to have that feature. I really, really, really like this open approach. In terms of PCVR streaming, I hear people talk about the compression a lot, and compression is an issue, but I've noticed since the last maybe 3 or 4 months, particularly since Virtual Desktop had that big update where it moved to OpenXR and it has now a 10-bit, is it HEVC 10-bit? I forget exactly, but there's the H.264 Plus, which can go up to 400 megabits, and then there's also the 10-bit option. Since those have been added in, I dropped the wire altogether. I was using this with a link cable at 960 megabits, and I just got rid of it. And latency seems really good these days, and I think the difference is before the latency was a deal breaker for me, but I think it wasn't necessarily that the latency was more before, but now it just seems more consistent. I don't know if anything's changed there. I did get a new router, so that's more likely what's resolved that. But then the latency is very static now, it's very consistent, so I feel much more present. I don't feel like the latency is an issue anymore. I use this with Virtual Desktop. I'm sure Airlink's great too, but just I like having it where it just goes straight into Steam VR and I don't need to worry about fiddling with the Oculus runtime and trying to match those up. So I just pop this headset on, click on Virtual Desktop, it links up to my PC immediately. My PC's there and I launch a game. It is brilliant. It is so good. And I know this is going to be another thing that's probably controversial, but honest to God, I swear the compression is barely noticeable anymore. I hated compression in the past and I noticed it all the time. I'm sure something like a Crystal or something, like much higher resolution, the compression is going to be very noticeable. But on this headset at this resolution, the compression's fine. To talk about visuals, I guess the main thing I'll say is that the lenses on this headset are unmatched. By far the best lenses on the market. Crystal's lenses, the Pimax Crystal's lenses are very good, but for a different reason. I would say that Pimax Crystal's lenses, actually, it's tough. I was going to say there's less glare and stuff. Like they're clearer when you're in the center. The Pimax Crystal's lenses are clear. I feel like the colors come through better, but overall, just these lenses are nothing else in the market comes close to these lenses. The edge-to-edge clarity is incredible. Your eyes are so relaxed. It's just, it really feels like my IPD. I feel like half the time I have the IPD set wrong in this, and it just doesn't matter at all. The way you set the IPD in this is just you physically grab and you move the lenses in and out. So sometimes I'll accidentally move those about, and I don't notice because the edge clarity is just so good. I know one complaint a lot of people have had is the stereo overlap in this headset, which yes, it's not great, it's low. Like the Pico 4's stereo overlap is 100%. It's the full FOV is full stereo overlap. That is incredible. I really, really think Pico should be commended for that, because they've done that for I think their last 3 headsets where it's been full stereo overlap. Really, really commendable, really brilliant decision by them. And yeah, stereo overlap's definitely better, but I actually, personally, I don't know why, but the stereo overlap on this doesn't bother me that much. It doesn't bother me at all, actually. I'm saying it doesn't bother me that much because I feel like I should be saying that, because we should always be pushing for better, but for some reason it doesn't bother me on this. It bothers me on other headsets, and I think it comes down to the lenses again, because my eyes are so relaxed that I think in other headsets, when your eyes are slightly unrelaxed, you start looking for more issues than you necessarily would if your eyes are just comfortable and relaxed. So Yeah. I just really wanted to kind of talk about this headset. Is this headset underrated? I would say for PCVR, yes, it is actually underrated in my opinion. It's an incredible PCVR headset. Overall, I would say it's not underrated. You know, like if I had bought this, just so you know, I got this secondhand for very cheap. I got a secondhand for, I forget now, like I'm trying to think what it would be equivalent in US dollars. Maybe about $800, and that was when it was still priced at $14.99. So if I paid $14.99 for this headset, I would say I would be unhappy, just because I would have been buying it for the productivity aspect, and that part would have fell flat, so I would have felt pretty jaded, and maybe that would have made me dislike the headset overall. Yeah, I think $15.99 is ridiculous, to be totally honest, particularly because you've got features like the eye tracking and face tracking that are raising the price of it up, that personally I don't use at all, so it'd be nice to not have to be paying for something like that. But for me, for what I paid for this headset, it absolutely was worth it. How does it compare to the Pimax Crystal is a tough one. They're very, very different. I think visually there's no comparison. The Pimax Crystal absolutely dwarfs this headset in terms of visuals. It's also very nice, of course, to have the complete lack of latency with a DisplayPort cable and to have the higher refresh rate. If I was playing a PCVR game and you put a Crystal in front of me and a Quest Pro, I would want to play the Crystal every single time. However, in reality, if they were both sitting there, there's a good chance I would reach for the Quest Pro more often. And the two reasons for that is A, wireless, and B, this off-face design and comfort. For me, that really is a big deal. But I think that's just because there's this distinct difference between what you want when you're going to use a headset and what your day-to-day actually results in. And for me to explain that a bit further, let me give an example. It would be like, what you want is the best experience, and there might be a little bit of friction, and that friction doesn't seem like a big deal. Maybe it's a wire and you're like, I've used a wire before, that's fine. Or maybe it's, I have to boot up some software in between and make sure it connects. That's like a small bit of friction where you're like, realistically, this experience is so much better in terms of visual clarity and yada yada. So obviously I would want this and I'll sacrifice this. But the reality is, day to day, you get home, you're tired, and you're like, I'd like to play a bit of VR. You want that friction to be as low as possible, so then you end up being like, if I just grab this one, I'm in, it's comfortable. I'm not committing to doing something either, so it makes it easier to get in. And then usually once you get in, you're like, I'm going to stay here for a while. But if it takes more effort to get in, then you're like, right, well, I want to make sure I'm actually going to do this for a while. So then the commitment becomes bigger, and it kind of just has a weird impact. It's really a tough one. Like, the Crystal is better in pretty much, all major ways. Audio, visuals, clarity. Well, that's including visuals, of course, but it's just better in so many ways. But as a complete PCVR package, and especially when you consider Quest Pro isn't actually a dedicated PCVR headset, it's really a strange one, how much the friction really has an impact. But just this headset, I think, really is actually something quite special. It's a weird one. It's a very weird headset. If I was to give some negatives that I really would like to see changed, one is the hard strap. I dislike this strongly. I would be fine with the battery being in the front and then putting on a user replaceable head strap with a battery in the back, like the way Quest 2 is, or have this just be detachable entirely. Like, I hate that this is a rigid strap, and the main reason I hate it is not for comfort, to be totally honest. I mean, it is partly that, because I think being able to put on your own head strap and customize it is a huge benefit and a huge bonus for any headset, so you can get one customized to your liking. But actually the main reason was for productivity, because this was another barrier to productivity, was this hard strap. It means that I couldn't fold this up and put it into a backpack. I had to have a carry case that I brought this around on, and it just made it so that it was so much more cumbersome to put in a backpack and bring with me. You could fit it in a backpack, but then your backpack's absolutely massive and stacked, and it just takes up so much room. So it ends up being that you had a backpack and essentially a little carrying case for this that you're carrying around everywhere, which completely defeats the purpose. While if I get a Quest 2, for example, or the upcoming Quest 3, that you can have a head strap that just folds around and fits in very small, so then you've got something in quite a compact form factor. The ideal one is actually what I used to do with the Quest 2 was I had the Bobo VR M2 head strap, I think it is, the one with the halo design. That one you could fold the back around, so the back of it was up near the lenses, so it actually protected the lenses. I don't even know if this was an intentional design. You could do that, and then you could fit the controllers there. So you ended up having, in the size of maybe like a rolled up jumper, you would have your whole VR setup there, and that could go in your backpack, and then you could put your whatever else in there. So it made it so that you could actually bring it places without really any issue. Quest 3 is going to be great for that. And then obviously headsets like the visor from Immersed or such, those are so small that they'll be absolutely trivial to bring around. So it's kind of ironic that this is a productivity headset when, like, what is a productivity headset? Do they intend for it to be just sitting in your office and you just grab it and use it each day? I guess that's their intention, but realistically, right now, with the way things are, software wise, the most viable thing for a productivity headset right now is to be a monitor replacement, and maybe that should be a jumping off point. Have a really good monitor replacement, and then get people used to this type of device being part of their workflow, and then start bringing in functionality as time goes on. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Quest Pro. I didn't, this isn't a review or anything, so I didn't go into details on all aspects of it, like audio or anything like that. Audio, for what it's worth, I actually think it's quite good. It's fine. It's not going to blow your mind or anything like that, but it's adequate. It's more than adequate. It's good. It's a really, really good headset, just for reasons that they were not intending when they made it, which is a very odd situation to be in. But yeah, I really like this headset, and I hope you enjoyed this ramble about it, and I'll be using this for the foreseeable future until something comes along that can actually work as a productivity spatial computing device or monitor replacement device. I think the immersed visor has the most potential right now. Apple Vision Pro, like I said, it's trying to do too much. Not that I think that's a bad thing, but I mean, for me personally, I don't want my laptop to be replaced just yet. Eventually, I do think I want that to happen, but right now, it's not there just yet. So I want something that's more just monitor replacement and maybe some light browsing, things like that, which an XR2 or XR2 Gen 2, whatever's coming up, I think that's more than powerful enough for those use cases. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, and hope you all have a great day.